Yeah, that light looks good.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We get to do this with Jacob.
I'm Kaylee.
We got the intro, I guess. We still have to record the intro, too.
Yeah.
So, episode 3 is going to be all about Faye. We're going to talk about who Kaylee is.
I'm nervous.
And the best part about, I like podcasts that are just flowing. I like podcasts and they don't have a script. So I have no fucking idea what I'm going to ask you or anything. So we're going to just get rolling with it. We're going to talk about Kaylee, and there'll be an episode later about myself too. So we can kind of give an intro of like who we each are, and then we'll probably talk about ourselves as a couple at some point too, and like who's Kaylee and Jacob, right? So Kaylee, Dr. Kaylee, Chinese medicine Kaylee, Bay Kaylee. If I were to ask you like who you are, well, how would you answer that?
The big question.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I could go a lot of routes with that, but I feel like without using like profession and stuff in there, I'm someone who's extremely passionate about nutrition, integrative medicine, leaving, like, I know it sounds like cheesy and cliche, but like kind of leaving the world a better place than I found it, and just wanting to like help as many people as humanly possible, and while also like helping the earth. I'm a big family person. I'm a big friend person. I love my relationships and friendships with people. I'm very passionate about movement and fitness as well. And I think through all these avenues, that's how I've like found the career that I'm in now, which is being a doctor of Chinese medicine. I got my sports emphasis from Northwestern Health Sciences University a few years ago. Prior to that, I was a registered nurse and graduated from Gustavus Adolphus College, which is a small liberal arts school in Minnesota. And I have you as my wonderful partner.
Oh, I mean it.
Always.
Sometimes wonderful. Well, before we talk about the movement and, the Chinese medicine side of things, you mentioned wanting to leave the world a better place. And I see that for sure, ever since I first met you. I'm curious, and I might know, but is that like always been a thing for you? Like for as long as you can remember? Like when did you start thinking about wanting to make things better than they were?
I feel like kind of forever. And I feel like if you would ask like any of my family members if that was the case, they would say that. My parents are teachers. My grandparents were professors and teachers. And all of us have kind of always had like more of like the human services careers and positions. My parents are also extremely family oriented. And I kind of grew up with my mom taking care of her great aunts and her parents and things like that. And I feel like that was just kind of instilled in me from a young age. And like my first job was being a babysitter and nanny. And I started that at like being 10 years old. So I've kind of always been in like that like caring for other people position and kind of having like human lives like that I'm responsible for. And like going from like being like a babysitter, then I became a nursing assistant, and then working in like nursing homes and assisted living homes. And I feel like my goal has always been to like put other people first. And I feel like you've been helping me work on that a little bit too, of like, and this is something I say too, like to my like patients who are caretakers of other people, like you need to take care of yourself if you want to be able to help other people. But yeah, so after like being like taking care of people, I at the time didn't want to go down like the teacher route, but then healthcare is kind of the thing that like came up for me. So like I knew that I'd be able to like help lots of people by being in the healthcare world, and I didn't want like I wanted something to like I kind of wanted to be significant. Like I wanted to like have a piece in other people's lives, and it's something that I feel like I've just been good at. It's come naturally for my whole life, basically. And yeah, that's kind of how I then ended up getting into this. But at the end of the day, yeah, like, oh, and also like with like the earth and environment, like 7th grade, I was doing projects on global warming and like I was very big into sustainability. And my first time on TV was like planting a tree.
Hold on. Your first time on TV? Like there were multiple times you were on TV? How do I not know this?
Well, I don't know if it was multiple.
You just say it so candidly. You're like, my first time I was on TV, like, was planting a tree.
Well, in 7th grade, we did like, I think I told you about this.
I'm just saying. You're like playing this off like, oh, it's just, just on TV. Everyone's on TV.
In 7th grade, it was a very like cheesy thing. We were planting trees for Mr. Collins' science class. And yeah, went to state history day or whatever it's called, like forwarding a project on global warming. So like, I'm very big on like trying to like leave the least impact, like environmentally and stuff as possible, which you've now seen firsthand with me.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to leave an impact, like a positive impact on people and the least amount of impact like environmentally, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I like how you also said like you like to have a part of other people's story, something along those lines. I think that's probably why we get along so well. Because we're both kind of like that. But hold on, really quick. How many times have you been on TV?
Well, I'm trying to think. I can't even give any specific examples right now, but I feel like it's been a few times.
I'd be very curious. I didn't know that. So I'd be curious to learn the other times. That was awesome. That was the first time I was on TV? Well, okay. When you think about it, let me know. So one thing I was curious about is you talked about specifically being a part of other people's lives, being kind of that person who likes to take care of people and whatnot. I also know you're an introvert, right? So how does that play a role in all of this, taking on other people's problems, essentially, in the field that you're in, and especially in the nursing field? And you were a nurse during COVID, too. So like how does that all play into it? Because as an introvert, someone that gets their energy not from the outside world and people, like you end up super fucked up every day. Like
yeah. Yeah, great question. Like I feel like I'm the overachiever introvert, and like I get my energy from like being an overachiever and like getting shit done and like being successful and accomplishing things. Are we good?
Yeah, the little waves aren't moving. Testing.
What waves?
Hello? At the bottom? I think.
And yeah, I feel like this has been like a journey too with me because my passion is helping people and taking care of others. However, it's extremely draining for me. And like, I think that's why it was good for me to live alone for a while too, because like, especially when I was a nurse, like at the end of my 12-hour shifts, like I would come back and just be like tanked and extremely exhausted because when I'm with people, even though I'm an introvert, like I try to give them everything. And I think sometimes that can come back and like negatively affect me. But like, I feel like when I'm with people, like I try to be like extremely present, and I've been told that I'm a very good listener, and kind of one of my like things is to be able to like listen and hear people out and kind of meet them where they're at. And I think that's what's made me like good at my career. And now like being an acupuncturist, like now I get to like actually meet with people one-on-one and listen to them and what's going on and hear everything out, and versus like, and like now having the nursing background and seeing that just like doesn't happen in the Western world.
Right.
For a multitude of reasons. But now I get to be that person that can like, so many people, like, they just want to be heard, and that's what I keep learning too. But like, that's the stuff that fuels me. And then at the end of the day, then it's just like, I need time that's like not with people, like in order to like recharge again. But I think that's something we've been learning too. And that I've been learning. And one of the reasons why I left nursing this last year, because it took everything out of me. And then I wasn't able to like be a good partner or be a good friend, things like that.
I lost my
answers
train
your
of thought
question.
after that. But how... It did answer the question. And then I had another follow-up question that in the last sentence I was going to ask you, and I completely blanked on it. So that's awkward. Now I don't have to ask that, I guess.
But I feel like I've been learning, like, with us two, like, just because, like, I'm an introvert, like, you being an extrovert need, like, just as much, like, alone time, I feel like, as I do.
This is not about me.
I'm just saying, like, it's been interesting, like, learning, like, what introverted means to me.
Right. How do you, that's what I was going to ask, how do you unwind at night? Because you said that you wanted to come home, that you need to come home and have, like, kind of alone time and, like, recharge time, but then you'll hang out with me, obviously, and I'm your partner, which is a little different. But, like, what does that usually look like for you? Recharging, so that you're ready to go the next day.
Yeah, like, for recharging for me doesn't necessarily mean just like sitting on the couch and like watching Netflix. Like, I still like getting shit done all the time, and I think that comes from like being the overachiever and just like I feel so good from accomplishing things. And so like I'm fine like coming home and like making dinner, continuing to work on work, things like that. But it's more of like the being in like specifically in group settings that like just drains me. So like it's very hard for me to go to work all day and like be seeing patients back to back and then go to like our group runs or group activities. Like I can do it, but instead of like getting fueled from that, typically like that can make me more exhausted. And I'm trying to get better at listening to that, because I can also just keep going and pushing it every single day. And then usually then my body will be like, nope, we've had enough. And then I'll get sick, which is what happened before we left too. And then I like physically like won't be able to do anything. And then I'll need to like rest for like 24 to 48 hours.
Or a week. I saw a week.
Okay. That time's a little longer. I don't know what happened there. But that time needed a little longer of recharging. So I'm trying to get better at listening to my body battery, but like it's hard, like especially like being someone who wants to help others and like be there. Like I'm more of a yes person, and like I'll do anything to not disappoint people.
Right. So switching gears a little bit into the acupuncture and Chinese medicine realm of things. So first of all, actually, I'm curious, what was it like being a nurse during COVID? Because I don't know if you've ever been asked that on a podcast, and I don't think we actually ask people that all that often.
Yeah.
I feel like we're just like, oh, it probably sucked a lot, but like, I feel like people don't ask that. So I'm curious, what was that experience like? Whatever you're willing to share. And then what was your transition into the acupuncture world? And how did that look, and why acupuncture?
Yeah, like I feel like now we've kind of just like moved past COVID. So even like you asking that, like I feel like I'm very connected with like how I feel, and like immediately I felt that in like my chest.
Yeah.
It was a very hard time like for everyone, but like for a multitude of reasons. The relationship I was in at the time, like I was also in grad school like throughout COVID. And I just remember like every shift going into the hospital was just like, it was so unknown what was going to happen. And like, I'm also very close with my grandmas, and like, I typically see them at least every other week. So then when COVID hit, it was like terrifying for me to go into hospitals, because I was like, now I can't see my family, like my parents, because my parents are taking care of my grandmas. Then I can't see my grandmas. And it was just like there's so much fear. And like, because I didn't want to pass it to anybody. Like, I'm trying to be good. Like, I'm trying to help people and heal people. And the last thing that I wanted was to be like this carrier and pass it along to others. So every day, like, I already got fearful of like being a nurse and like going in every day, and then you had COVID on top of it, and it was just like, I don't know what today is going to bring. And like there was a lack of supplies like the whole time, so we'd reuse the same mask like up to 5 days in a row, and we'd be sharing like gowns and like face shields, things like that, because they just didn't, like, I don't know what happened, but we're not prepared like in any way, shape, or form. And I think then the hard part too with that was that like hearing where the media was coming from, a lot of it was like, and this again was like, there were a lot of external things that were affecting this, like relationship wise, but hearing like, oh, the media is like overplaying this, and like, I don't know, there was a lot of doubts as to like what COVID was doing, like from half of our country at the time. And then for me, it was like, okay, I see what's happening like firsthand in the hospitals, and like our whole like ortho unit was turned into a COVID floor for a while. And it's like, this isn't just like something that's being made up. And so I think that just added like a whole nother like really hard side to it, to be like, okay, I'm like risking a lot here. Like, yes, I'm a young, healthy individual, so like the chances of me dying are like very slim. Like that was never the concern. But again, it was just like the passing it on to other people. That was very scary. And the other part was I learned that nobody knows what they're doing. And like my parents don't know what they're doing. Like politicians, like nobody like knows. Like we're all just winging it every day. And as a 26, 27-year-old, like that was a big like moment of realization. But yeah, so that was kind of like the COVID side of things. It was scary. And looking back, I'd do everything that I did before. I'd do it again, but because we didn't know. And I was just trying to do the best, like with the information that I had and from what I was seeing like up firsthand. But so I was already in school for acupuncture and Chinese medicine at the time. So it's not like COVID was like the thing that made me like switch to that career, but it made me extremely grateful that I was in it. And like it completely solidified like my why of what I was doing. And I was like, because just seeing like the treatments and medications, things like that. And typically it was like the healthier individuals that were like staying healthy, like not getting COVID, things like that. And my whole goal was like preventative medicine and like keeping people healthy using lifestyle changes. So, and I don't love the acute care side of things. So like me being in the hospital during that time was just like not a great place to be.
Tell us more about acupuncture and getting into that.
Yeah. So like when I was working at the hospital, I wasn't for COVID. I started as a travel nurse there, and there were acupuncturists that worked inpatient, meaning they were working like bedside, like with patients. And I knew that like nursing and like the Western side of things wasn't the way I wanted to go for the rest of my life. So I'd like looked into like the nutrition side of things, and like becoming like I had gotten into the nurse practitioner with integrative health and healing program at the U of M in Minnesota here. But I still knew that wasn't like the exact direction I wanted to go with things. And so then when I started working with these acupuncturists, started talking to them and seeing like how I could combine like the Eastern medicine, like the holistic side of things, with Western medicine. And that's kind of like my whole thing, is like the beauty of using both of them together. And I feel like it's now been extremely beneficial, like having like the Western side of things and like seeing where patients are coming from, and like any like surgeries, procedures, medications, different like comorbidities that they have, like knowing all that they go through, and then being able to come to me and be like, okay, this is my place like in your story. And knowing that like neither side can fix everything, but like using both of them together, like that's the beauty of it. And so yeah, I like after that first travel assignment, I started school for acupuncture like that January. I was supposed to go to yoga teacher training in India, and they still have my deposit for that. So hopefully we can go and do that someday.
Do you think they'll actually give it to you still?
They said they would hold it. So, and it's still open. I still follow them on Instagram.
Sabbatical next year.
Sabbatical in India.
Yeah. So something that I really admire about you is that you don't, a lot of times, like Western, Eastern medicines kind of butt heads, and I feel like you really don't. You know what I mean? Like you use both backgrounds to help everyone. Am I wrong?
Yeah, because I am a firm believer that there's a time and a place for both of them.
Right.
But my belief is that the Western medicine side of things is more of like the acute care. And like, I always use the example, like if someone breaks their arm, like I say, I'm as an acupuncturist, like I'm not your first person to go to. Like go into the hospital. Like if you need like stronger pain meds or surgery or whatever, like or antibiotics, like that's what the Western side of things is for. And it's great. We have tons of like amazing technology. However, it's only been around for a couple 100 years. And like, that's why we call it a practice. Like all of medicine is a practice. Like, again, like going along with that, nobody has anything figured out. Like Western medicine doesn't have it figured out either. Like it's only been around for like a short amount of time, and we're continuing to get better in some aspects. I think other aspects not so much. But then Eastern medicine has been around for thousands of years, and there's so many like studies and stuff that have proven that it works. And I also like to say, like, if it didn't work, like I really hope that it still wouldn't be around after thousands of years. Like we were just talking about this, but like I feel like one of our purposes on Earth is to like evolve, and hopefully evolution wouldn't have kept it around. But like so many medicines and stuff like come from Chinese medicine and like Eastern medicine, like our herbs, like aspirin, for example, came from an herb and then was synthesized, changed in a lab, and made into aspirin. But like so much of that comes from like plants and from the earth. And so that's why like I believe that there's a huge beauty in using both of them together, and like not having either one be like the end all be all. So I've seen how both work, and I've like separately, and I've seen how both of them work together. And like working in a hospital setting with acupuncturists was like a huge like eye-opening thing to me, to be like, wow, this is like so cool how both of these things can be used together.
Right. We should do a whole podcast on that sometime. Just about like Eastern versus Western. And I feel like a lot of people like, I mean, have people be like, oh, I don't believe in Eastern. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, then there's like people who don't believe in Western medicine too, and are more on like the very like crunchy side of things. And like will never go and like see like a medical doctor. And it's like you need to be open to both and be able to like figure out like the time and place for each of them.
Last little question I have for you. We didn't talk about the fitness side of things, but let's morph that into, well, actually, you've done a 200-miler. The fuck?
You coached me for it.
Tell us about that. Where the hell did the ultra stuff come from? And obviously, you're a big runner. I know that. But tell us about your fitness background a little bit, and then I'll maybe ask a few other quick questions. But I think those are the big things that you talk about.
Where did it come from? Well, I feel like overarching, like I talked about being an overachiever. So being in the ultra world and kind of wanting to like push all of my limits.
Well, you ran your first marathon when you were like, was it 4?
Stop. No, I just graduated high school. My goal before going to college was
17 then, right?
I just turned 18.
You just, because grandma's.
Yeah, I did grandma's in 2012.
So you were 18. I did my first marathon when I was 19. I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought I would never find anyone else like in any of my circles that would be younger than me. I'm serious. And I like prided myself on that, of being like, I want to do a marathon before I'm 20. And then you came along.
Always trying to one up you.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, that is, I mean, for anyone to do a marathon, like, I think is like a huge accomplishment. But it was just like I've talked about this before, but like, so I did track in high school, and that's kind of when my like running career started. But like, I was one of the slowest people on my team. And I just thought running was like the hardest thing ever. But I would do like the local 5Ks, like Lindstrom Loppet, things like that, and was never the best. And like, but I tried so hard. Like, and I was always out there. I would make every practice. I would do all of the runs, all the workouts that they asked. But I remember like, it's like the high school was maybe a mile away from Dairy Queen. And I just remember it being like the hardest run ever and like dreading the days when we'd have to run up there. And I like my running career, I feel like started like because of my mom. She started running in her 30s or so. And last year ran her first 100K, which is 62 miles. And like, I remember like just watching her, like starting from like running from like one stop sign to the next and then walking, and then running to the next stop sign and walking. And like my mom and I have always been very close. I feel like that's kind of like was just inspirational to me to see that. And then my first marathon was with her because she had already done like a couple by that point, and she's always been like extremely down for any adventure, and was like, yeah, like I want to run like my daughter's first marathon with her. But I feel like that was kind of a big push at the time, and like I didn't really train per se for it. Like I think my longest run was maybe like 8 miles before that. Did not have like a nutrition fueling strategy, I think, as most like first marathon runners like no. Just kind of ran it. My whole goal was just to like finish and not die and have like a slightly good time.
Slightly
good time. It was painful. That thing hurt so much. But yeah, so after I did that, I was like, I don't know if I ever need to do that again. And as every runner says, like then I ended up doing a few more after that. But because then I moved to so then after I did the marathon, I went to Gustavus for college, started out doing tennis. That the team, like the atmosphere just didn't fit with me, so I switched to cross country. And again, kind of same story, like was not the fastest. I got shin splints. I'd be out within like the first month or two of the season from injuries. But again, just loved like the running atmosphere and like the community of it. So I just kept going and showing up and being consistent every day with it. And then after that, just like kept signing up for races and kind of just doing my thing. And again, it was kind of always more of just like completion for me, which I feel like is why then getting into like the trail world was kind of like very, like that's why it fit me more, because and like the trail world's also changing very rapidly and becoming more about times. But like for me, when it started, it was more about like you can like walk up hills and like people don't care. It seems like, especially at the time, like it seemed like people didn't care about like the times as much because every trail is so different. Like most people know like a good marathon time, you know, a good 5K time, a good mile time. Like when you're on trails, like the terrain is different with every trail, like the elevation gain, things like that. And like, yeah, I just feel like from my experience, trail runners are just a lot more laid back. And I really liked that atmosphere because that kind of like matched my goals of just like more of having a good time. And so then I started doing that with my mom too, actually, and ran my first 50K, first 50 miles. And so my first 250 miles were 2 years ago about. And after that, I was like, okay, like if I can do that, then like I got to try 100. So then the next year went for my first 100 miler, and that was just last spring on an Orcas Island in Washington. And that was like one of the best weekends of my life. Like if you look at any like videos or pictures, like I was just on like such a high. And like I'm not someone who does drugs, but like after like my 50 milers and like 100 miler, I'm like this is the closest I can get to like the ultimate like full body high that I could possibly get. And yeah, it was just like a life-changing experience, and like having my people around me and everyone was just like so happy. After that, I was like, I can't let that be my last time. Like now I got to see like what the next thing is and what else my body can do. And as we talked about in the other episode, like I'm very much like in the life is for living. And if I have the ability to do something, like I'm going to do it. And like, I think also in all of this, like I've realized that I'm very good at being uncomfortable, and not just like short periods of being uncomfortable, but like being uncomfortable for a really long time. And I think that stems back from like childhood and stuff too, and like having different like procedures where I had to like be uncomfortable, and then was able to like kind of like transport myself like to another world almost. Right. And I just got really good at that. And for a number of reasons, and that's why then I was able to then push myself to train for a 200 miler with your help. And that was just done a couple months ago, and it took 86 hours of being uncomfortable that entire time, and then for weeks after. And yeah, it was quite the experience. Less of a high. It was a very different experience than the 100 miler.
Would you recommend?
No.
There's a really good podcast that Kailee did with Performance Running Gym on her 200 specifically. If you're interested in breaking that down, we could do an episode 2 and break that down. Like 6 months out from the 200, how was Kailee surviving?
Yeah.
So I think that was insane. That was crazy.
Let's just say like hemorrhoids and walking on fire and nails. Like, that's why.
Well, you can say that's what 100 feels like too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it was more of just like the 100 like was done within a day and a half, whereas this was just multiple days of just like being on my feet and
right.
Yeah.
So what do you like to do for fun? Last little question. What do you like to do for fun that's not running or working or traveling?
I love spending time with you, my favorite person. Yeah. And that includes like, we love going to concerts. I love live music, always have. I love playing piano. I've been doing that since.
Oh yeah, Bella's Lullaby. That's how we fell in love.
That's how I won you over. Put you to chance. I started piano lessons in 2nd grade, and just that's kind of always been like my outlet.
She does it all.
It's been piano. I love to read and anything outdoors. I say like camping. I love being on the water. So like paddleboarding, wake surfing, things like that bring me a lot of joy. And coffee shops and restaurants. Big foodie.
I love it. Kailee Carlson, everyone. Is there anything else you want to share? We kept it right at 30 minutes again. We're nailing the episodes. Anything else you want to share, babe?
We get to do this.
I'm a little worried that didn't record.